Snow descended in hushed veils over their fine enclave of Oakridge Heights. Stately residences with sprawling driveway stood as guardians against the wintry night, their windows casting cozy light that flowed onto untouched snowy lawns. It was the sort of community where alarm systems purred softly behind decorative doors, where landscapers kept flawless shrubs even in winter, and where everyone understood their role. Elizabeth Morgan was out of place here. Her faded blue dress, once lovely but now tattered and soiled, gave scant decency against the piercing chill. Snowflakes got in her long golden hair as she plodded through the mounting snow. Her shoulders curled against the gusts 3 days without proper refuge, 2 weeks without employment, and 6 months since the eviction that began her downward plunge. She gripped a creased slip of paper in her numb hands. On it, an address and a quickly jotted note. Women's winter shelter opens at 7 p.m. A compassionate telegraphy had scribbled it when she'd noticed Elizabeth seeking warmth among the library shelves. That afternoon, Thegrisful street signs were hard to decipher through the snow, and Elizabeth's fatigue made focusing almost unattainable. When she finally spotted number matching her note 1422, she nearly sobbed with relief. The majestic blue door with its polished brass knobs stood atop a brief set of stone steps. Light shone warmly from within. With her final reserves of energy, Elizabeth ascended the steps and tried the handle. To her astonishment, it yielded. Warmth powered out to greet her, carrying the soft aroma of cinnamon and evergreen. She stepped inside, swiftly shutting the door behind her. The entrance hall was vast and still. "Hello," she called faintly. "I'm here for the shelter program." No response came. Elizabeth ventured deeper, her damp shoes leaving traces on the gleaming floor. The house felt too serene, too meticulous layered to be a shelter. Uncertainty began to seep in as she observed the costly furnishings and artwork. Had she misread the address? She slumped onto the lowest step of a grand staircase, her legs finally buckling after hours of trekking. She'd rest just for a moment. She promised herself, then sort out her mistake. The sound of claws tapping on wood drew her gaze. A German shepherd approached, its keen eyes assessing her with curiosity rather than menace. Elizabeth stayed motionless, unsure if the dog would growl her. "Snap, Max, who's this?" A resonant voice sounded from around the corner, followed by its owner, a tall man in a luxurious coat with a fur-lined collar. His face shifted from surprise to wariness. Ash saw Elizabeth on his staircase. "I'm sorry," Elizabeth said, struggling to rise on shaky legs. "I think I got it wrong. I was searching for the women's shelter." The man tilted his head slightly, his initial doubts easing as he took in Herrenkamp State and the raw fear in her eyes. "That's on Oakwood Drive, not Oakridge Avenue," he said, his tone softer now. "It's about 2 miles east of here." Elizabeth felt her faint hope dissolve. 2 more miles in this storm seemed unthinkable. "I'll go," she murmured, moving toward the door. "I'm sorry for trespassing." "Wait," the man said, raising his hand. "It's getting worse out there." He glanced out the window, where snow now fell in dense, blinding waves. "You can't walk 2 miles in this blizzard." He seemed to wrestle with himself briefly before offering his hand. "I'm James Wilson," he said. "And this is Max." "Elizabeth Morgan," she replied, avoiding his hand, wary of how grimy hers might be. James lowered his hand without remark. "Let me make a call," he said, pulling out his phone. "The shelter might send a volunteer to fetch you." As James spoke quietly on the phone, Elizabeth perched tentatively on the stair's edge. The German shepherd settled beside her, his warm body a sharp contrast to her chilled frame. Hesitantly, she rested a hand on his fur, and the dog pressed into her touch. "Noon's picking up," James said, ending Thekel. "And the news says several roads are closed due to ice." Elizabeth stood, swaying slightly. "I understand. I'll find somewhere else." "That's not what I meant," James said swiftly. "I meant you'll need to stay here tonight. I have plenty of space. And Max seems to think you're trustworthy." Elizabeth glanced at the dog, who gazed back with steady brown eyes. "I couldn't impose." "It's not an imposition," James cut in. "It would be heartless to send you out there." Too drained to protest, Elizabeth nodded. James led her to a guest bathroom where she could clean up and handed her clean clothes that, he explained, belonged to his sister from her visits. Later, seated in the kitchen with a bowl of home-made soup before her, Elizabeth observed her unexpected host. James moved with the easiness of someone who never fretted about his next meal or where he'd sleep. Yet, a faint sorrow lingered in his expression, at odds with his surroundings. "Have you been here long?" she asked, breaking the quiet. "5 years," he answered. "Though it still doesn't always feel like home." "It's stunning," Elizabeth offered. James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's empty, just me and Max most of the time." As the evening unfolded, their conversation grew easier. Elizabeth learned James had built a thriving software firm and sold it for millions 2 years ago. He now worked as a consultant, mostly from home. "And you?" he asked eventually. "How did you end up seeking a shelter tonight?" Elizabeth's tale emerged slowly, the accounting job lost to downsizing, the apartment she couldn't afford without income, the friends' couches she'd stayed in until she'd overstayed her welcome. The slow, crushing slide from stability to homelessness. "I never imagined it would happen to me," she said softly. "I had a degree, savings, plans. Life doesn't always stick to our plans." James replied, absently petting Max's head. "After my wife passed 3 years ago, I thought I had my future set. Now I'm not sure of anything." The raw honesty in his words lingered between them. Morning broke with dazzling sunlight, making the snow-draped landscape gleam. Elizabeth woke in a cozy guest room, briefly disoriented until the previous night's events rushed back. She found James in the kitchen, brewing coffee. "It called the shelter," he said as she entered. "They're open now, and the roads are cleared. I can drive you there after breakfast if you'd like." Elizabeth nodded, though leaving stirred an unexpected ache. "Thank you for everything." Over breakfast, James seemed to be mulling something over. Finally, he spoke. "I have a proposal," he said cautiously. "My housekeeper left last month, and I haven't replaced her. The job includes room and board, plus a salary. It's temporary, of course, until you find something better suited to your skills." Elizabeth studied him, searching for pure hidden motives, but found only genuine. "Why offer that to a stranger wandered into your house?" she asked. James smiled, a warm smile that lit his eyes. "You didn't wander in. You got lost, and Max vouched for you." The dog's ear twitched at his name. "Besides, my house hasn't felt this alive in years." Elizabeth weighed the offer. It wasn't accounting, but it was a chance to rebuild, to stand in firm ground again. "I'll need references," James added, misreading her pause. "And there's no pressure. The shelter's still an option." "No," Elizabeth said quickly. "I mean, yes. I'd like to accept your offer." Outside, the morning sun climbed over the snow-laden neighborhood, painting the world with promise. On the doorstep where Elizabeth had arrived, lost and despairing, 2 strangers had found something unexpected. She, a chance to restore her life, and he, a reminder of what home could feel like when it wasn't hollow. Max trotted over Tazit between them, his tail brushing the floor in satisfaction, as if he had known all along what would unfold when Elizabeth stepped through the wrong blue door. On a snowy winter night,